I'm working on South America. Most band in North America, I should go south. When I told a friend of mine, actually my partner, that I was going to be giving an address to something that wasn't a juvenile detention facility. And she said, who couldn't they get? I said, J.K. Rowling, Stephen King, Aiden Stottlemyre. She said, who's Aiden Stottlemyre? I said, you get my point. When I was a young man in my 20s and 30s, I went home for Christmas one time and I asked my father what he thought about the idea of me trying to be a writer. And he reminded me that when I wrote my next book, I would have written as many books as I read the whole time I was in high school. So I probably had some research to do. And he was a voracious reader. And what he said to me was this. He said, you know, buddy, he said, all the stories have been told. And that was pretty disturbing information for me. And he challenged me to give him themes or subjects, and that he would give me at least 2 novels written about that theme or subject. And I couldn't keep him under 4. And as I was turning away with my literary tail between my legs, my father looked at me and he said, but none has yet been told by you. And it's all about that perception. It's all about that perspective. I was in Port Townsend, Washington this last week working with some younger writers. And I had, and by the way, almost every author who works in Port Townsend knows this program. And they were kind of jealous that I was coming here. And it occurred to me that I was flying halfway across the country to come and ask you for you to do just one simple thing. I just want you to save the world. You know, we've tried it before and we've broken way more than we've fixed. And we've tried it with money and proven ourselves to be greedy liars. And we've tried it with religion and philosophies and just X'd out more people than we included. And it's clearer and clearer and clearer to me that if we're going to do this, if we're going to save the world, we're going to do it through imagination. And we have been fairly short on imagination in the past 2 decades. And it's time for people to step up, I think. I can't come to a place like this without telling a story, and it's a story that it is actually, I mean, it's the story of my censorship career, it's the story of my writing career, it's all of it, all tucked into one story. I was working at the Mental Health Center, and we were working in the world of child abuse and neglect, most of the therapists that came together there. And my expertise was supposed to be adolescents and adults, so I worked with a lot of the older kids, and mostly a lot of young men. And I worked with a fabulous play therapist who just, one of those magical people who can absolutely disappear and see the world through the eyes of the child. And we would combine our talents and along with other therapists. And we had this wonderful program going. We had a lot of money poured in. It's not like today. We had a lot of money poured in to this program for kids. And it was all about treatment. It was all about getting families back together as quickly as we can, because when you break a family up, if there's any possibility, you got to get back together. Well, we started looking around, and somebody from Head Start got a hold of us, and they said, you know, we have 17 kids out here, and they're all in foster care. Why don't you send some therapists out here? We can do it all day. We have the parents out here already. Head Start it brings the parents in to participate. We got the kids. We put all the kids in one class, give us a couple of therapists, and we'll make this thing dance. Well, they brought Carol out as the play therapist, and they brought me out to the parents. And I'm a little bit nervous because I know adolescents. That's kind of my thing. And these are 5 and unders. This is preschool. And we're going out there, and I'm a little bit nervous because I don't know anything about play therapy. I didn't even know there was play therapy. Play therapist says, Carol said, listen, she said, if these kids have been hurt, they've been beaten up, it's statistically a pretty good chance they've been beaten up by men. So just back off. Let them come to you. Some will come quicker because they're tough, and others will wait to see if you're safe. Sounds good to me. Basically, I thought you were saying you don't have to do anything. So I went out and I went out the first day, and I'd been working not too long ago down in Oakland, California, which is like one of the most diverse places in the universe. And I grew up in Cascade, Idaho, a lumber town that is really lily white, and went to a college that was as lily white. And then having gone down to Oakland and come back into Eastern Washington, I realized that I wasn't in a very diverse place. I walk into the room, and there are 17 kids there, and they're putting their stuff up and all that. 16 of them are white, and there's one little girl who's mixed race. And her dad was nobody knew who her dad was because mom wouldn't tell anybody who her dad was, but her dad was an airman. He was a black airman at Fairchild Air Force Base. And mom wouldn't, like I say, wouldn't say because she knew this guy would come save this kid. And she goes off and marries one of the most racist men I've ever run into. He was an old carnival worker. And boy, the N-word came out of his mouth like a and a nut, and he hated this kid. He was on her all the time. And there was nothing you could do to say to her, you're okay, you're okay. Well, I walked into the building the first day, and the kids are putting their things up, and she's over there, and she's one of those kids that's just magnetic. Other kids like her, you couldn't see her life on her face anywhere. She's walking around, she puts her stuff away, and then she goes over to the sink. And she reaches up, and there's a big bar of soap on the sink, and she gets it, and there's a brush. She gets it, and she turns on the water, and there's the brush, and it's stiff brush, it looks like it hurts. And I went to the play therapist, I said, what's she doing? And she said, she thinks that she can get the color off, that her stepdad will love her. I said, man, why didn't somebody tell her he's a jerk, and she's cool, let's get on with this. And she said, she doesn't go home with you. She goes home with him. And she's showing us what her world is like. And that's the way play therapy works. You don't go telling people everything's going to be okay. You start where they are. She said, we'll get to the place where she knows he's a jerk and she's a good guy. But we will go on her path. Well, that makes me pretty nervous. Then I see them go into the play therapy. One of the things that the play therapists would do each time would take 2 or 3 kids who had sometimes the same trauma off into the playroom. The playroom's great. We got every toy you can think in there. Dolls and Legos and trucks and cars. You name a toy, we have it. Tara walks into the room. She doesn't mess with anything. She just walks around and picks up dolls. And she gets a great big armload of dolls, and she brings it over. We have this little, it's an old refrigerator box cut off in half, and she dumps all the dolls into the box. And then she kneels down, and she doesn't look, and she reaches in, and she pulls out a doll. If it's a light-colored doll, she treats it like her little brothers get treated, because mom and stepdad had two little brothers for her, who get everything first. They eat before she eats. They play with the toys till the toys are broken. She gets leftovers across the board. And I mean, it would kill you because you look at this mom, and when dad is not around, stepdad's not around, it's like those two are joined at the heart. But stepdad comes in and mom backs up, and this kid is in the eye of the hurricane. Well, she goes into the room and she takes out, like I say, a light-colored doll, and she rocks it, and she puts it in a cradle, and she gives it a little play bottle. When she takes out one of the darker-colored dolls, she treats it like she gets treated. She calls it names, all the filthy names that he calls her, and kicks it across the room, and when she's finished, she's just in a heap. And you watch this play therapist work with her, and she follows her around. When Tara's mad, play therapist is mad right with her. When Tara's okay and happy because she made some new outcome out of her imagination, the play therapist is happy right with her. But when it's over, she's just in a little heap, and it is really hard to watch. Well, when I first go in there, I don't know any of this. I walk into the room, and she's scrubbing on her arm, and she looks up and she sees me. She's never seen me before. And she just walks over and stands right in front of me like, try it. And I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do, so I try to step around her, and she just steps in front of me. And I go the other way, and she steps in front of me. We do this little dance. I'm not going to get past her. So finally, we stand looking at each other. And she gets a big smile on her face and goes, like this, look me up. And I dare you not to pick her up. I'm just the coolest kid in the world. I pick her up, I get her eye level, the smile gets even bigger, smiles even. She looks at me and she says, fuck her, bitch. I said, well, you did. Whoa. And I heard the therapist, she said, don't judge and don't be criticizing these kids. I didn't know what it sounded kind of funny coming out of a 5-year-old kid, so I laughed. And when I laughed, she threw her arms around my neck and started giggling. And I thought, well, this play therapy is easy. All you have to do is sit around and say bad words with little kids. I was pretty sure that wasn't true. And I went back to Carol and I said, do you know what she just said? And I said it to her and she just laughed and said, yeah, I do know what she said. And I was worried about her, what's going to happen when she goes to kindergarten. And when she goes to kindergarten next year, she's going to be talking like that, and she'll be out of kindergarten before she knows what's going on. She said, look, she said, this is the smartest kid we have in this room. This kid lives in the eye of a hurricane all the time. She said, watch any time a new adult comes into this room, especially if it's a guy, she marches right up to him, and she runs something up the flagpole. And if you've been angry with her, if you pushed her away, if you had done any of those things, you would be furniture around you. She wouldn't have anything to do with you. She wouldn't eat with you. She wouldn't read her a book. You're done. But now you didn't, and you'll see your stuff. Well, that makes sense to me, but I'm still worried about kindergarten. So I try all my tricks that won't work, and they just don't work. Well, I can remember the year, it was 1985, because it was the year my dad died. And my dad, when he died, willed me his 1979 Chrysler New Yorker. Now, I'm driving around in a Volkswagen Bug, and this car is the biggest thing I've ever seen. You can stand across the street and look at this car, it touches both parking meters. I'm afraid to drive this car. But I take it out to Head Start one day because my car won't work. And as I'm driving into the back, one of the foster kids looks at my car and he says, that's a limo. And his foster dad was a limousine driver. I said, well, it's not a limo. He said, that's a limo. And from now on, it's going to be the Head Start limo. And whenever we go on any trips, the older kids are going to ride in the Head Start limo, and the other kids are going to ride in the van, but it's the Head Start limo, and from now on. I say, okay. 3 or 4 days later, we're going to the Humane Society, and I take the Head Start limo out, and there's 6 of the older kids, and they're perfect. You can put all 6 of them in the back seat, 1 seatbelt over the top. So I throw them in the back seat, we go out to the Humane Society, and we're seeing puppies and kittens and things like that. And we're driving back down out into the valley, and the kids are back there, and I'm driving the car. They're kind of bored, and they're messing around. Pretty soon I hear one of them say a bad word. And she's one of the kids back there. I hear another kid say a bad word. Then I hear another kid say those 2 bad words and another bad word. And pretty soon it sounds like the 7 dwarfs are back there making a porno movie or something. Rolling my windows trying to not get caught. She's back there and she says, it's still okay to cuss in your car, isn't it, Chris? I said, yeah, it's still okay to cuss in my car. And she said, but not when you go to kindergarten. And I said, what? And she said, if you talk like that in kindergarten, no kids will play with you, and they'll never invite you to their house. So she gets the language. I mean, it's 2 different languages. It's the language of messing around in the back of Chris Crutcher's car, and it's also the language of desperation and warning and danger. Well, we have these kids for a full year. And I look at these, I walk in the room one day and I look around and I say, wow, 17 kids, 16 kids are going to get to go home. One's not. There's no way this guy's going to stop calling her names. He won't stop slapping her in the back of the head. We got to find foster care for her. And it just won't work. Some of the best foster homes in the world, we get her out there. For 5 days, 6 days, she is golden. She fixes her room. She makes her bed or tries to. I mean, she is doing things no 5-year-old kid does. But then she starts to get nervous. Because every time she's been in her home before, they gave her away. So she does what she did with me. She starts testing it out. She started the behavior. Foster parents would start the discipline. Man, if you're going to discipline this kid, you better bring her lunch because she is one tough little girl. And at the end of 2 weeks, they're packing her little bag and sending her back to the social worker. 3 months in the last time, 6 foster homes. And we are running out of time and the smile is gone. But there's one foster home in town that we know would work. I mean, they're mixed race already, so the culture piece is no problem. And these people would run a nail through their eyes before they gave a kid away unless that kid's going home. You just didn't do that. And I knew the foster dad used to play basketball together. We talked about this kid. He was dying for a shot at it. And we couldn't get him in because they were always full. They were too good. I said, man, I don't care if it's midnight. If you get an opening there, you call me. One night, it's not midnight, but it's about dinner time, the phone rings. He said, Chris, we just sent me home. If you can get her over here tonight, we'll get her in here, we'll do the paperwork, and she'll be here. But if you wait till tomorrow, it's not going to happen. I called the play therapist. I said, go get her, come get me. We're going out there. They come and get me, and we're driving out to the foster home. I'm in the back seat. She's riding shotgun, best clothes, little bow in her hair. She just looks gorgeous, and she's like this. And the closer we get to the foster home, she starts to rock. And by the time we get there, she's so nervous, she's leaned over and she's chewing on the armrest. I think, man, this better work. And we get out of the car, we're out there, it's a big ranch house, kind of a U-shaped ranch house. And we get out there and she gets out of the car and it's dark by now and it just looks warm. And we come around the back and she gets out of the side of the car, she closes the door and she looks at this house. And I think this is probably the thing I remember more than anything that night. She looked at the house and she said, I don't know how much longer I can do this. 5 years old. These foster parents are unbelievable. We go in there and the whole family, there's still two of their own kids and 2 other foster kids. It's a big place. We walk in and while we were out getting hurt, Dad went out and went to McDonald's and got Happy Meals for everybody. And it's just lined up around the kitchen. You walk in there and you just see, it looks like the inside of McDonald's. And she walks in and you know she sees them. You can see her looking at the Happy Meals, but she doesn't even pretend like she wants one. She's just going to walks out to the middle of the kitchen, can't knock anything over, just standing there being good. Foster dad's real funny and he starts kind of teasing her and stuff, but she is not getting tricked. Figures Happy Meals, right? So he pulls out the Happy Meals, gets the French fries. And he hands them out to everybody. Boy, she has that little bag of French fries, and it's one French fry at a time. She's not even spilling salt. And you know what's going to happen to a 5-year-old kid when that being that careful. They slip out of her hand and they hit the floor and they just spill. And she said, give me one more chance. Please give me one more chance. I'll never do that again. I can clean that up. I can clean it up. And I'm over there going, man, when does this kid get a break? But this foster dad is so smart and he is so quick. And he sees her on the floor and he sees the desperation, he sees those fries, and he just dumps his fries on the floor. And he goes down on his hands and knees and he says, we used to eat them down here all the time. That's how they taste best. Thanks for reminding me. She looks at him like an absolute idiot. His 2 sons are over there and they're going, that's cool. I figure I gotta get in on this too, so I know. We're not even picking them up we're eating them off the floor, which is fairly disgusting. It's really funny. And in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, the kids are off in the bedroom playing, and we're getting ready to leave, and you're thinking, boy, did we just dodge a bullet. And I'm out on the porch and kind of bowing down to these folks, and it occurs to me that we're probably not going to see her. I'm probably not going to see her again because they don't need us. They need their way there at this and there. So I run back in to say goodbye, and she's going, yeah, I got some new friends, get out of here. So I disappeared. And I had that feeling that we all get, that feeling that I just want to know what happened. We never get to know what happened. I get lucky with this kid. It's like 11 years later. I get up in the morning, I'm going out on a run. I'm running in a neighborhood where I don't normally run. And I see this high school girl walking down the street. She's got a band instrument in her hand, and she's walking down, and I said, that's where I know her any place. And I start to yell at her, and then I think, well, I come out of a pretty ugly time in her life, and maybe I should bring that back up. But she recognizes me, and it's like she saw me yesterday. I mean, she is waking up neighbors yelling at me. So I jog across the street, and we're walking down toward the bus stop. And she starts telling me her life, like we were talking about it yesterday. She said, I got to tell you, Chris, she said, I was a devil child. She said, I did everything I could do to get thrown out of that house. I came home one day in first grade after I'd been adopted, and I came home and I was mad at my teacher, and my teacher was mad at me. And I walked into the house, and Mom and Dad were home, and they weren't looking. And she said, I snuck into the laundry room, and I smeared poop on the inside of the dryer. And I left. She said, my mom came looking for me, and she found me hiding in the closet, and she picked me up by my shoulders, and she took me into my bedroom, and she sat me down on the bed, and she said, you listen. You belong to us. There is nothing you can do to get thrown out of here, so just stop it. She said, my dad came in, and you could tell he thought it was funny because he's like biting on his cheeks. He said, little girl, you can burn this place down, and we're just going to sit here in the ashes, but you're not going anywhere. And she said, it took me a little while, but she said, I started feeling better. And I'm a junior, I'm going to get to go to college. She said, I get A's and B's. I did pretty good. I go, man, I've been listening to Child Abuse Stories for 11 years since I knew you, and yeah, you're doing pretty good. Started to run off, and she said, hey, wait a minute. She said, you've been writing books. I said, how'd you know that? She said, our teacher made us read one of them. I said, I wasn't a very good teacher. She made me all of them. She said, you know what? If you ever wanted to put my life in a book, you can do it. I said, well, you know, your life's kind of confidential. I'm a therapist. And she said, I'll sign papers. She signed papers. She said, when I was a little kid, she said, the worst day of my life every year when I was in grade school was the day before the first day of school. She said, I'd sit around and I'd think, what if I can't make any friends? And what if I get a teacher like my old stepdad? I mean, think of all the bad things that happened on the first day of school. And she said, I walked into that room, and she said, I looked around that room, and I knew every kid who had secrets. And they knew me. And she said, you don't tell your secrets. But when you hear a teacher read you a story, and some of those secrets are in there, it makes you feel like you're not alone. It makes you feel like she knows you. And she said, you can talk about the characters in the book, and you don't have to tell about your own life. And I thought, wow, this kid has just told me what I think storytelling is really all about. It's all about that connection. So I did. I took her story. I had a character with a multicultural character telling the story. I thought, man, if I put this kid in this book, it's going to be better than it ever had a right to be, because I do not have the imagination for this. And I stuck her in the book, and it elevated. The book is called Quail Talk, and it just elevated. And it elevated because she gave me her story, and she said, take my life and put it in fiction and bring it back. Now, I get banned for this book all the time. I get it over and over and over. Because when you got a 5-year-old kid yelling out all those bad names, it's in big font. And on the Whale Talk, you go, ooh, geez, that nothing this tall. But I go back and I think, what was it that she was telling me? She was telling me that if you used your imagination and you put that story in a book, it would connect with a whole bunch of other kids. And it wasn't about race. It wasn't about race, it was about indecency. And it was about finding a way around that indecency. And it was about looking at the world through the eyes of this character that you're telling. It's having a good enough imagination, cultivating your imagination, so that you can show a truth. And when the truth has a ring of truth to it. And when you get it right, people nod. And they go into the story and they stay in the story. And I look around right now, and I think, look at what we've gotten ourselves into. Think if we had been able to talk our leaders into closing their eyes and putting into their imaginations what that first day of shock and awe would feel like if you were Iranian or if you were Iraqi. And think what might have happened if they had closed their eyes and imagined the horror and the hell that the people who are coming home from that world are going to have to live through maybe for the rest of their lives. And think about the officials of Penn State if they had closed their eyes and imagined that was my kid. About 15 years or 13 years of child abuse wouldn't have happened. You can't let it happen. It's just too easy to walk away from imagination and come up with something that you think you believe in, and you can call it that and you can put a talking point. And that's all you have to think about. And you can get richer and richer and richer, and even though money is finite, you don't think about the poor people. But you can't turn your back on a good story. You can't turn your back on a good writer. Some of you are going to write stories for a living. Some of you write stories part-time, some of you will write essays, some of you will write poetry, and will screw people's insides out. But if we're going to save this culture, we're going to do it getting smart, and we're going to do it with imagination. And what I want for you right now is to close your eyes and get to work. Thank you for your time and attention.